What a rogue and peasant slave am I. Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit? And all for Hecuba. What's Hecuba to him or he to Hecuba that he should weep for her? What would he do? Had he the motive and the cue for passion? That he would drown the stage with tears and cleave the general ear with horrid speech, make mad the guilty and appall the free. Vengeance! I have heard that guilty creatures sitting at a play have by the very cunning of the scene been struck so to the soul that presently they have proclaimed their malefactions. The play is the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king.
I like to begin with a great generalization and say that the theater is a communication, like all the arts. It's a communication. It's a way of saying something, and it's a way that the community speaks to itself. Now, what does that mean? The actors are members of the community. Before they were actors, they were citizens. They lived in a certain environment. They lived in the environment for which they play. In the germinal stages of the development of theater, the theater was a ritual. That is to say, people who were hunters performed. It was always in a huntsman's tribe, so to speak, where plays about hunting took place. If it was an agricultural community and rain was necessary, then they prayed for rain or they danced for rain. They made some expression of their needs. And from that kind of primitive beginning, which at the beginning was never thought of as an art, it was thought of as the very way the community lived, where it talked to each other, where it understood its problems, where it aroused the enthusiasm. They did it collectively easily when they all knew each other and when they were all, like, so to speak, one family. But the truth of the matter is that every person who's a professional theater realizes that despite the diversity of people, despite the diversity of craft, despite the diversity of discipline, they are basically one, because without that unity, which was the original unity of the primitive theater, no play can be articulated. As we see in any rehearsal, such as I attended the other day at the Actors Studio, played by Michael Gatzo, the man who wrote The Hatful of Rain, and the director was working with the actors, and sometimes the actors made suggestions on lines even.
I need a drink here, and I need a woman!
What the hell are you yelling at us for?
The director's work with the playwright is to work in collaboration with him so that he really understands what the playwright wants and try and find ways to do it.
Frank, I want you to get up on, what are you hollering at us for, right? I want you to go here.
The leading character comes from a criminal society. He's just them and those guys.
And as he says, I need to stay here. Where are you? Sam? Sam? Stay here.
And he says, when I need a woman. In other words, the actor was beginning to get the rhythm of that character, and he didn't have it yet. But if it pops out, it would tend to show his violent nature.
I need a woman and I need a drink!
What the hell are you yelling at us for?
She's hiding. Jesus, I'm afraid to go home. She's hiding under the porch.
Under the porch.
This fella is Lower East Side, you know. The play would seem, if you read it, to be poetry. But the poetry doesn't work unless he speaks that way.
I'll tell you the truth. The truth scares the hell out of me. I don't go run up and throw my arms around the truth. I walk a little slow around the truth. What is she doing under the porch, huh?
You, when you're afraid to go home, what do you do?
What time is it?
I got...
He's over here now.
All right, you're up here. Here's to your fever.
I don't need a doctor.
No, baby, you don't. You don't need a doctor, honey. What you need, I'll tell you what you need as soon as I get this thing put on you. Here's to your fever.
I don't need a doctor, Dave.
No, baby, no, you don't need a doctor, honey. What you need, baby, There's a man who goes around hiding the razor blades or sniffing for gas. You want to know where you died? You could never believe in love and hate lying in the same bed, side by side.
Most plays are written where the man wants to remember. He wants to tell you a story, but Mike says in life, when we're telling something painful or thinking about something painful, we don't want to remember.
You're going to be a stand-up.
That's an interesting concept, and it's very difficult to do, though. So we tried to do that, to have the man be talking to somebody, and somebody says something over there, and he answers her, and...
See, you don't know how happy I am this burned down. I'm happy.
What we did was to mesh it in terms of going in and out of that scene, so that the man was always in the bar, so to speak. That was the experiment as it was. That's what we chose, that part of a play, to show to Clurman, to see if that was the right way to do this play. Maybe he would tell us there was another way to do it.
All the years I never knew her or saw her. See, time and memory can be juggled. I mean, years and days shifted. Believe. I mean, that's got no meaning to me. Those are dirty words. You know, men have murdered for much less. And I would too, but my memories never die. Good or bad, they're mine, forever. Truth will never kill love if it is love on it. All those years, I never knew her or saw her. Well, I'm going home.
Good night. You haven't finished your drink. It's a double set, obviously. There's one side is the home where he lives nearby, and the other side is the bar, right? I mean, what you was indicated here suggests that.
Yes. A bar, I think, becomes a home to a bar is a family, depending on the bar. It becomes a substitute. So that he's in the bar, and we're constantly in and out of that bar, and he keeps going back.
I never knew whether I was in the periphery of the play or the center of the play. I was at the end of the play or toward the beginning of the play. In other words, there was, to me, a certain formlessness in the scene. There are three ways where you make a climax in a play. There is the ordinary way for a realistic play. You build the information to a slight crisis, you get the thing more and more into a conflict, you get into a greater tension, you have an explosion, right? I'm not talking about his play. I'm talking about a certain kind of play which I don't think he should write at the present time. These people who are the roughnecks, who are the destroyed, who are the alienated, who are the disseminated, who are the decimated, all of these people, we are beginning to see more and more plays like that, and if you don't write them with great skill at the present time, they seem like something already seen. The movies are taking them up. They become B-movies. They become C-movies. I can see this play written in poetic prose, if you will, to call it that way. I can see it done in verse, but you don't have to take my advice. I'm just trying to explain a thing.
The bar members, all of them, it was written in chorus. They were in chorus.
It was written in chorus, he said.
It was written in chorus. Then I started to reduce the chorus to characters, or tried to reduce them to characters. And perhaps what you're saying is that in a peculiar kind of way, I think, that these lines can be, it doesn't really matter who says these lines. In other words, it doesn't matter whether the owner says the lines or whether Jack says them or what. In other words, those lines, they're pretty malleable and pliable.
That is true, but it's not true altogether. At the present time, that's the way it says, but it shouldn't be that way. I'll tell you an example. By the way, I didn't talk about a chorus or a band or anything else. I'm not telling you how it should be done, you see. But it has to have a form. At least you must seek it. You must seek it. And there is another way, because to create form, and that is to make it a progression in eloquence. That is to say, as the situation of whatever the situation may be, that the playwright choose those things which are more and more pointed in speech. in lyricism, in vehemence, in declaration, in the results of his epic confusion. But I wish to have an accumulation, a form, an arrow of meaning, of emotional power, and of psychological clarity, or philosophic, or mystic even, intuition, which satisfies me. But right now, I'm in the various worlds and not satisfied yet with either.
I don't know whether I agree with you or disagree with you. I'll have to munch that over. You give me till 6:30 to figure that out.
The trouble with most of the plays at the studio, I found, is that they have no metaphor.
In what sense do you mean?
That any good work of art goes beyond its specific impulses and becomes metaphor. And the majority of the plays there, and the majority of the plays we read for the playwrights unit, as a matter of fact, don't have any metaphor attached to them. No resonance and no overtone.
That's true.
But there must be resonance and there must be overtone. And there must be implication that goes beyond the specific event.
It has no window on the world. In other words, it's an enclosure, and I see nothing beyond what you're showing me.
It's the same thing.
It's the same idea. Well, that's true. My feeling has always been, and you'll forgive me because I've told you this before, but I'll tell you again, and perhaps you come close to agree, but your plays are too realistically done. But you know what I'm talking about.
It seems to me that if you are attempting something that is meant to move off of a familiar level into something else, you've got to start off on a familiar level.
That is true, but that is very true.
But I do have one fear, which is maybe why I allow the sets in the direction to be a little too realistic, is that I've noticed that audiences in the United States want to be let off the hook, and will use almost any chance they can not to have to relate themselves to the experience that they're watching. And so maybe I lean too far over backwards in forcing them to relate themselves, and maybe that's why they seem too realistic.
What about the relationship of the younger folk to the theater today, those who seem to be...
The college kids, and I do go around to a number of colleges and have conversations with the kids, they do seem terribly involved in the theater.
I agree with you.
And they do go to the off-Broadway, they go to the cafe theaters. They know the names of the young playwrights we've been talking about, Shepard and Wilson, and Paul Foster and the others. They do assume, of course, that the commercial theater on Broadway is, as it usually is, the home of claptrap. And they don't want to sit around with 160-year-old people who are sleeping through everything except one of David Merrick's noisiest musicals. But I don't think they are alienated from the theater. They're alienated from the condition that the theater gives off, the odor that the theater gives off when it gets into big business. It's still true that what happens on Broadway it still does set the standard of excellence around the country. Maybe when there are enough repertory theaters, and if the university theater has enough effect, then Broadway won't be the factor determinator that it is now, the quality determinator.
I would say that I will go even to Broadway to see good play.
Well, I've got to earn a living too, so I go to Broadway myself.
Wrong with the theater today is they gear the theater to commercial purposes, thinking of the almighty dollar rather than the things that they should be talking about.
No, that's not necessarily true at all. I can think of a great deal of shows that I thought that are very relevant and timely.
There's a certain intimacy sitting in a theater. You feel almost so you can get up and tell the performer what you think at the time.
Go to learn about life and other people, but I think it's primarily enjoyment.
Great theater is a dream world.
The world is changing, and the playwrights of today are not changing with it at a fast enough pace.
I do think, however, there's been a stultification on Broadway, a repetition of the same kinds of forms and the same kind of a theme. And also, there is in our leading playwrights repetitiveness, I find.
The great fallacy is to think that Broadway necessarily represents the American people or the American audience or the American...
It doesn't at all.
It doesn't. It's a
even
very
1%.
special audience, and don't have to denigrate it. I'm not against Broadway, because I'm not against East 9th Street either. And although much of the stuff is still very crude and amateurish off-Broadway, it interests people because they deal with things that are not set on Broadway with a vitality and an enthusiasm and a sincerity which is absolutely essential for a living theater. So all these minority things and these radical things are not radical in the sense of left or right or anything like that, but they are...
Well, they do say they are left to the extent they say we don't like the way things are. There must be a change right away, and there's an awful lot that's not acceptable about the way our society is now.
It's obvious on the campuses.
And thank God everybody's yelling about it. But we try to do that in the 30s too, to do that. But I think there's more of it now, and I think a lot of the off-Broadway people who feel issues, especially left issues, very strongly, are making increasing efforts to go direct, to make direct statements or direct dramatizations about them. It's counter to the theater of the absurd, where it's directly counter, and in that sense, it's an opposition wave, and I think a damn welcome one as far as I'm concerned.
Let us pray. O Lord, our Father, our young patriots, idols of our hearts, go forth to battle. Be thou near them, with them, in spirit. We also go forth from our beloved firesides to smite the foe. O Lord God, help us to tear their soldiers to bloody shreds with our shells. Help us to cover their smiling fields with the pale forms of their patriot dead. Help us to drown the thunder of the guns with the shrieks of their wounded, writhing in pain. We ask it in the spirit of love, and seek his aid with humble and contrite hearts. Amen. Amen. Good people, during my recent visit to the Vietnamese front, I had an opportunity to meet a sergeant who operated the Jeep with a .50 caliber machine gun on it, similar to the type of vehicle you see on rat patrol. He was a good-looking man, and I was very impressed with him as one who was really doing his job. I asked him if his flak vest was effective. He said, yes, but I have a better one. I have a Bible. He pulled a pretty well-beaten Bible from his left pocket over his heart. A bullet had hit that Bible and had penetrated as far as the 83rd Psalm. That Psalm says in part, keep not thou silence, O God, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation. I think now a few moments of silent meditation would serve to help us find the answer that we all seek.
There is specifically a satire having to do with the church and war. I think it would be naive to say that we wanted to change the president or do any specific thing. I don't really think that's in the field for theater to do. I think it's to see into our own kind of complicity with things that we don't like. So we are trying to find a sort of direct expression the way we can find it, whatever way that is, for things that are baffling us and turning us off and deadening us and making us mute. And it's an impulse to make noise in a kind of silence and to shake up things, I guess, in a way.
Don't you think we experienced the sensation of living differently now than we did even 30 years ago?
Yes.
We experienced it less verbally. We do experience even society differently. We see its manifestations differently. We learn differently. We become acquainted with each other differently.
All that is true. The theater is going into the streets, it's going into churches, it's going into lofts. It's obvious that they're trying to do things that are never done on Broadway. They're trying to make visual images which are acrobatic, which are choreographic, which are not verbal, which are not literary, but which are physical and very total.
Now, birth ritual and opening ceremony are both parts of a work in progress. So what we're doing now is moving from the opening ceremony to the birth ritual.
The birth ritual was directly taken from a similar ritual performed by the Osmat Indians in New Guinea. It struck me as really a universal image rather than one that just belongs to the Osmat tribe in New Guinea. And so we tried it at the workshop, and it struck me that it was extraordinarily moving.
Some of the kind of work I'm trying to work on in the workshop is to develop our own particular kind of vocabulary, a new set of tools, which are very, very traditional. They relate to an oral tradition rather than a written tradition. They relate to what goes on in the Tiwi of North Australia or some of the Papuans in New Guinea. We're talking about somehow reshaping the whole theatrical experience so that it doesn't imitate life, but is really an exchange of living things. The theater's moving back to the oral tradition where if there is a writer at all, he's there, he doesn't come in with a play, but he comes in with his talent, and with the performers, the text evolves. If there is a text, it'll be a new thing. It's about time, too, because the theater has long been a 19th century and 18th century art form. It's about time it gets into the 20th century. I hope it gets into the 20th century before the 20th century gets into the 21st.
Now, the birth ritual is from Dionysus in 69, and it comes near the beginning of the play. It works out of our exercises, and it is augmented by dialogue from Euripides. We have taken that dialogue and adapted it to our own uses. For example, Pentheus is speaking Euripides' lines, but William Finley, who plays Dionysus, is speaking his own lines. He wrote them.
Good evening. My name is William Finley. I have come here tonight for 3 reasons. To tell you that I am God. To establish my rights and ritual. And to be bored. If you'll excuse me.
The birth ritual epitomizes our work in this way. The sound is the sound that you cannot deny making. It has to be forced out of you by the experience. As they go through, each of them, the experience of giving birth.
I am Pentheus, son of Echion and Agave. I've been away, out of the city, but reports have reached me of strange disorders here. Stories of our women leaving the home to frisk and mock exorcism and the pickets on the lawn. Dancing in honor of the latest divinity, Dionysus, whoever that may be. They are! Yes, even my own mother, Garvey. I know. And Dr. Noah, Ekion's brother. That trap is closing. And I've also seen this obscene disorder. Many stories have also come of a strange deed from Lydia. One of those little magicians with long locks. Girl. I am Pentheus, son of Echion and Agave. I've been away, out of the city, but reports have reached me of strange disorders here. Stories about women leaving home to frisk and mock ecstasies among the thickets on the mountain, dancing in honor of the latest divinity, a certain Dionysus, whoever that may be. In their midst stand bowls brimming with wine, while one by one they wander off to secret nooks to satisfy the lust of men.
And the American theater today is really spreading far more than anybody suspects. That is, over the country and into places where you don't expect theater. And these plays and places are a seedbed for some future creator to make of them a director or a director plus an author, to make them a new expression.
I think the hardest part of any work of art is the author's or the artist's relationship to himself. To get to a point where you can look at yourself and your experiences and your past and your desires now, absolutely truthfully, to look at them candidly, to look at yourself candidly, is the hardest part of it. People say, well, what problems did you have with this or that I've done? I would say only with myself.
The high moment of drama, the high moment of the contact between the audience and the actor, or the actors among each other, is an embrace. And it's embrace on the highest level and on the physical level. It's the most direct art because there are living people in front of other living people, and it happens at that moment. By the way, what is love, and what is art, and what is religion, and what are all these things? But the effort, or the possibility, or the experience of going out of your own little self, no matter how much you think of yourself, into the whole world. To join in a love embrace of the sky, of people, of the other things, because no matter how big we are all human beings with a short span of life and a short capacity compared to the total human capacity. And so we always feel alone. And that's why we need art to make us feel that connection between ourselves and the not-self. And we only get greater at people than we are as we enhance ourselves and take in more, embrace more of the whole world.
Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage. Full of sound and joy, sanctified, sanctified, sanctified.